Everybody pauses at some point in their lives and asks themselves, what am I really doing all this for? Even if you get up, go to work, and go through the motions, something inside of you feels empty. You strive for achievement, yet tranquility eludes you. Listen carefully, my friend, whether it describes you or if you feel disoriented by the life you have created, because your intention can be the issue rather than your job. Nowadays, a lot of individuals are looking for purpose in their work. They ascend the success ladder only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. When the applause stops and the salary is spent, they still feel a great pain within because they have poured their time, effort, and energy into things that disappear, like fortune, fame, and prestige. That pain serves as your soul's cry to remind you that you were created with a purpose rather than merely for employment. The distinction between earning a living and creating a life is significant. Many individuals devote years to pursuing occupations, titles, and recognition in the hopes that they will eventually find fulfillment if they can simply achieve enough success, make enough money, or demonstrate enough accomplishments. However, many frequently get at the summit only to discover the view isn't what they had hoped for. Despite their accomplishment, they are not content, they are not at peace, but they have prestige. The lack of purpose is the issue, not the occupation. What gives everything you do significance is your purpose. In times of uncertainty, it serves as the compass that guides your decisions and the why behind your efforts. Work becomes regular, success becomes meaningless, and even achievements lose their shine when there is no purpose behind them. Your accomplishments will eventually wane, even if you are the most accomplished individual in your industry, if your heart isn't in line with something bigger than yourself. However, purpose lends everlasting weight to seemingly everyday things. It turns your work into a calling rather than a chore. A lot of individuals mistake a profession for a purpose. They consider their identity to be defined by their work. However, your work is not who you are, it is what you do. Your career is only the framework on which your purpose functions, regardless of whether you are a teacher, builder, designer, entrepreneur, or student. Why are you doing it is the more profound query. Are you trying to change the world? Or are you just working to get paid? Are you trying to help others, or are you trying to get acceptance? Even the most mundane tasks take on a hallowed quality when they are inspired by God. Excellent cleaning by a janitor may glorify God in the same way as a speech by a preacher. When they work with the proper heart, a nurse who provides compassionate care to the sick, a driver who works honestly, or a student who learns with integrity are all carrying out their divine destiny. The idea behind the posture is what gives it power, not the position itself. Moreover, purpose provides endurance. You can endure about anything if you know why you're doing it. Because you know that your efforts are not in vain, you are able to endure long hours, setbacks, and difficulties. Self-serving people quit when things get difficult, even when no one cheers. Those who work for a higher purpose, to glorify God, to serve others, or to fulfill a calling continue. Ambition and the pursuit of achievement are perfectly acceptable, but when they become the aim rather than the outcome of a sincere purpose, it causes emptiness and burnout. When you view your profession as a means to serve rather than to impress, you will find true fulfillment. Your focus changes from self to significance, from short-term gains to long-term effects. When you have a purpose, your everyday activities take on importance when you start to prioritize your life over your career. You question yourself, what can I do today that matters? Rather than, what do I have to do today? Knowing that even the tiniest deed, performed with the proper motivation, has eternal significance makes your heart lighter. Your job and life become one, not just a career to survive, but a calling to live out. Work was never meant to be a burden. It was designed to be a blessing. From the very beginning, work was part of God's plan for humanity. Before there was sin, before there was struggle, there was purpose. The Creator placed man in the garden not to sit idly, but to tend it, to care for it, to cultivate it. That means work itself is not a curse, it's a calling. But somewhere along the way, people forgot that truth. Work became something we endure instead of something we offer. It became a duty instead of an act of devotion. Yet, when you see your work as worship, everything changes. Work as worship means that whatever you do it as if you are doing it for God Himself. Whether you're leading a company, cleaning a room, teaching a class, or raising a family, your work can be sacred when your heart is right. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men." That verse doesn't only apply to church work, it applies to every kind of labor, physical, mental, or creative. The true measure of work is not how impressive it looks, but how pure the motive is behind it. When you begin to see your work as an offering, even the most ordinary task becomes extraordinary. A cook preparing food with care, a mechanic repairing an engine with honesty, a student studying diligently. All of them can worship through their work when they dedicate it to God. Worship isn't confined to songs and prayers, it's expressed through excellence, integrity, and love. Every time you give your best, you are saying, God, this is for you. That attitude transforms workplaces into sanctuaries and daily routines into sacred opportunities. This mindset also protects your heart from pride and burnout. When your goal is to glorify God rather than impress others, you no longer need validation from the world. You stop competing for attention because you know that the only approval that matters is His. Work becomes lighter when it's not about ego but about obedience. You can face criticism without breaking and success without becoming arrogant because your work no longer defines your worth, your worship does. Seeing work as worship also redefines success. In the world's eyes, success is about how much you achieve, how high you rise, or how much you earn. But in God's eyes, success is about faithfulness, doing what you're called to do with excellence and integrity, no matter how big or small the task. The janitor who works with a heart of gratitude may be more successful in heaven's eyes than the CEO who works only for profit, because worship is not measured by results but by reverence. When you invite God into your work, something supernatural happens. Frustration turns into fulfillment, pressure turns into peace, and effort turns into expression. You no longer work to survive, you work to serve. You begin to see coworkers not as competition but as people to love. You handle challenges with patience because you know your work is not in vain. Every deadline, every project, every challenge becomes another chance to reflect His light in a dark world. Work as worship means you are living every day with purpose. It means your job is not just a paycheck, it's a platform. It's a chance to honor God in the marketplace, in the classroom, in the home, or wherever you are planted. When you approach work with that attitude, you stop asking, "What do I get out of this?" and start asking, "What can I give through this?" That is when work truly becomes worship, not just something you do with your hands, but something you offer from your heart. Everything in this world fades with time. The wealth that once brought comfort will one day lose its value. The titles that once earned applause will be forgotten. Even the greatest achievements of humanity eventually become dust in history's pages. Yet, there is something within the human heart that longs for permanence, a desire to create, to leave a mark, to be remembered. That longing is not pride. It's the echo of eternity placed in our souls by God Himself. You were not created for things that perish. You were created to do work that carries eternal significance. When you live with eternal significance in mind, your priorities begin to shift. You stop measuring life by temporary rewards and start measuring it by lasting impact. You realize that the true value of your work is not in what you accumulate, but in what you contribute. A kind word to a hurting soul, a prayer whispered in faith, an act of honesty when no one is watching. These are the seeds that outlive you. What the world sees as small, heaven sees as eternal. Too often, people spend their lives building empires of sand, careers, possessions, reputations, only to see them washed away by the tides of time. But when your work is rooted in God's purpose, it becomes part of something that never ends. Every time you work with integrity, every time you show love and compassion, every time you use your gifts for good, you are investing in eternity. The rewards may not come in the form of money or recognition, but they come in peace, joy, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that your labor pleases the one who matters most. Eternal significance gives you freedom from comparison. You no longer need to measure your success against someone else's achievements because your assignment is unique. You are not called to do everything. You are called to do what God entrusted to you. The teacher who shapes a child's future, the parent who raises children in faith, the worker who chooses honesty in a corrupt world, each of them is fulfilling divine purpose in their own sphere. The greatness of your work is not in its visibility but in its faithfulness. It also changes how you face difficulty. When you see life through the lens of eternity, trials lose their power to discourage you. You understand that struggles are temporary, but what they produce in you, character, patience, and faith, is eternal. You begin to see setbacks as setups, tests as training, and pain as preparation for something greater. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Use me," because you know that even in hardship, God is weaving eternal meaning out of temporary pain. Living with eternal significance also redefines what success looks like. The world says success is reaching the top. God says it's remaining faithful wherever you are placed. The world says success is about recognition. God says it's about righteousness. The world says success is about comfort. God says it's about character. When you live by eternal standards, you no longer chase what fades. You build what lasts. One day, everything you've done will pass through the fire of eternity, and only what was done for God will endure. That thought should not bring fear, but freedom. Freedom to focus on what truly matters. Freedom to stop striving for applause and start living for purpose. Because in the end, it's not the size of your work that counts, but the spirit behind it. Eternal significance is not found in what you build on earth, but in what you send ahead into eternity through faith, love, and obedience. Wealth, power, position, and praise are the metrics that the world uses to measure success. However, genuine success seems somewhat differently in God's view. How faithfully you walk is more important than how high you climb. True success is determined by who you become rather than what you own. If your heart is far from your mission, you might have the best career, the largest home, and the loudest accolades, yet still feel hollow. You start to prioritize obedience over results when you reinterpret success from God's point of view. You understand that doing what is right is more important than doing what is popular. Being noticed is not the goal of success. It all comes down to being honest. It's about being honest, modest, and excellent every single day, even when no one else notices. Walking in accordance with God's will is the path to true success. It is the awareness that your efforts, your impact, and your skills are being utilized for a purpose greater than yourself. Impact, not appearance, is the key. Hearing the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant," one day is the highest achievement. Because it's a success that lasts forever. No amount of money, no amount of fame, and no amount of time can ever erase it.